the infinite depth of being, a mystical contemplation, the awakening to what is. In the stillness before thought, in the silence that precedes all naming, there dwells a presence so fundamental, so utterly primary, that the mind recoils from its simplicity. This presence, this conscious awareness that I am, stands as the bedrock upon which all experience constructs its temporary monuments. Yet how rarely does the seeker pause to contemplate not what consciousness perceives, but consciousness itself, the eternal witness that gazes through the windows of perception without ever being diminished by what it sees. The mystic stands at the threshold of a great mystery, one that cannot be approached through the accumulated wisdom of ages, nor through the intricate architectures of philosophical systems. For consciousness, in its essence, refuses to be captured by the nets of language or imprisoned within the frameworks of systematic thought. It is like water that slips through grasping fingers, like wind that cannot be held in the hand, like light that illuminates everything yet remains itself unseen. The truth of existence announces itself not in the thunder of revelation, but in the whisper of immediate presence, in the simple yet profound recognition. I am conscious that I am. This recognition, this bare acknowledgement of being, stands as the gateway to a deeper understanding. Yet how many pass through life without ever truly pausing at this gate? The seeker may traverse libraries, may sit at the feet of teachers, may memorize sutras and contemplate koans, yet all of this remains peripheral to the central fact, the undeniable, immediate, irrefutable experience of consciousness itself. Here, in this present moment, consciousness is. Not was, not will be, but eternally is. And in this eternal present tense, all questions about the nature of existence find their origin and, paradoxically, their dissolution. The descent through layers of illusion. The journey inward requires a radical stripping away, a courageous abandonment of all that has been accumulated. Like a traveler who must leave behind heavy baggage to climb a mountain path, the seeker must release the burden of secondary knowledge, the theories, the interpretations, the meta-narratives that wrap themselves around direct experience like veils obscuring the face of the beloved. These constructs, however brilliant, however time-honored, stand between consciousness and its own recognition of itself. They are fingers pointing at the moon, but the mystic must learn to look beyond the finger to the luminous orb itself. The existentialist philosophers of the previous century, those brave explorers of inner space, charted a course toward this essential recognition. Beginning with the simple affirmation of present consciousness, the here it is, of immediate awareness, the undeniable fact of being here and now, they undertook a methodical stripping away of the superficial, the conventional, the inherited. Layer by layer, they peeled back the accumulated sediment of culture and concept until they arrived at something more fundamental, pure being itself, or perhaps more accurately, the mysterious ground where being and non-being dance their eternal dance at the edge of all conceptualization. This is the realm the mystics have always known, though they have called it by 10,000 names. Some speak of the ground of being, others of the void, still others of the divine presence that pervades all things while remaining eternally transcendent. The existentialists, approaching from philosophy rather than devotion, found themselves standing in the same placeless place, gazing into the same fathomless depth. They discovered what cannot be taught but only experienced, that beneath all the bustling activity of consciousness, beneath all its constructions and projections, there lies an infinite stillness, a boundless presence that simply is. The paradox of the nameless. To speak of this presence requires language to perform impossible gymnastics, to gesture toward what forever eludes capture. Some call it being, yet it equally deserves the name non-being, for it possesses none of the attributes by which we normally distinguish one thing from another. It has no color, no shape, no location in space or time. It does not increase or decrease. It cannot be added to or subtracted from. It is complete unto itself, or more precisely, it is completeness itself, the absolute fullness that appears as emptiness to eyes trained only to perceive forms and distinctions. The mystic who has touched this reality might speak of it as God, and in truth, what better name for that which is the source and ground of all existence? Yet even this most sacred of names falls short, for the ultimate reality transcends all names, all concepts, all attempts to circumscribe it within the boundaries of human understanding. It is equally the everything and the nothing, the zero and the infinite, the silence from which all sound emerges and to which all sound returns. Here lies the great interpretive challenge that has confounded seekers across the ages. The difficulty resides not in the nature of being itself, which is perfectly what it is, utterly consistent, forever unchanging. Rather, the difficulty lies in the perceiver, in the consciousness that has become so entangled with its own productions, so identified with its constructions, that it can no longer recognize its own essential nature. Like an eye that can see everything except itself, consciousness perceives a universe of objects and events while remaining blind to its own transparent presence. The spiritual traditions speak of this condition as a kind of sleep, a forgetting, a veil of ignorance that obscures the light of truth. Yet even these metaphors, helpful as they may be, introduce a subtle distortion. For there is, in truth, no actual fall from grace, no real descent from a higher state into a lower one. Consciousness remains forever what it is, pure, untouched, pristine. What changes is not consciousness itself but the focus of its attention, the direction of its gaze, the particular dream it temporarily inhabits. The theater of imagination. Here the mystic arrives at a teaching that challenges every assumption, that overturns all conventional understanding of reality and illusion. For what we call the world, what we experience as the solid ground of existence, what presents itself with such compelling immediacy and apparent reality, all of this unfolds within a space that might best be described as imaginal. Not imaginary in the sense of being false or non-existent, but imaginal in the sense of being a construction, a creation, a manifestation within the infinite field of consciousness. Consider the vastness of this vision, all the countless universes, visible and invisible, all the dimensions of experience from the grossest matter to the subtlest spirit, all the intricate cycles of birth and death, all the ascending and descending, all the striving and achieving. This entire cosmic drama plays out within consciousness like a dream within the mind of the eternal dreamer. Yet the dreamer never actually goes anywhere, never truly becomes anything other than what it eternally is. The sense of being caught in cycles of existence, of being bound to the wheel of becoming, of needing redemption or liberation, all of this belongs to the dream, not to the dreamer. This is the great secret that liberates and terrifies in equal measure. There is no actual bondage, and therefore no actual liberation. There is no real fall, and therefore no necessary redemption. The entire spiritual journey, with all its practices and disciplines, its stages and attainments, unfolds within the imaginal space. Even the most exalted mystical experiences, the most profound states of samadhi or union, occur within this same space of consciousness playing with its own manifestations. Does this mean that nothing matters, that all effort is futile? Far from it. For within the dream is utterly real. The suffering experienced is genuine suffering, the joy is genuine joy. The practices that lead to awakening are necessary within the context of the dream, just as a character in a story must follow the logic of that story to reach its conclusion. But from the perspective of consciousness itself, from the viewpoint of pure being, all of this activity represents a magnificent play, a divine drama enacted for no purpose other than the sheer creative joy of manifestation. The cessation of futile striving. Meditation, in its deepest sense, points toward the cessation of this elaborate activity. Not because activity itself is wrong or because the world is evil, but simply because there comes a moment when consciousness tires of its own games, when the eternal actor wishes to remove the mask and remember its true face. In this moment, all the seeking stops. All the complicated practices, the intricate philosophies, the earnest strivings toward enlightenment, all of it falls away like autumn leaves from a tree. What remains? Nothing that can be grasped, nothing that can be achieved, nothing that can be added to what already is. The mystic discovers that consciousness was never actually lost, that being was never truly absent, that the very thing sought has been the seeker all along. The journey from here to there collapses into the recognition that there is no there, that there has only ever been here, that the present moment contains all of eternity within its infinite depth. This realization brings neither excitement nor disappointment, neither elation nor despair. It settles over the soul like gentle snow, quiet and all-encompassing. In this settling, a profound peace emerges, not the peace that comes from having acquired something, but the peace of recognizing what has always been. It is the peace of the ocean that remains untroubled in its depths while storms rage across its surface, the peace of the sky that contains all weather while remaining itself unchanged, the peace of consciousness that hosts all experience while maintaining its essential nature. The recognition of the sacred ordinary. The awakened mystic does not flee from the world, but sees it with new eyes. Every blade of grass becomes a testament to the infinite, every stone a sermon on eternity. The ordinary reveals itself as the doorway to the extraordinary, the mundane as the mask of the sacred. For if all of this, the entire manifested universe with its galaxies and atoms, its joys and sorrows, unfolds within consciousness, then nothing stands outside the sacred, nothing exists apart from the divine presence. Yet this presence remains profoundly humble, utterly without pretense. It does not announce itself with trumpets or claim special status. It simply is, as immediately available as breath, as intimately present as the sense of existing. The seeker who has searched far and wide discovers that what was sought has been closer than close, more intimate than intimacy itself, the very consciousness with which the seeking was conducted. This recognition transforms everything while changing nothing. The world continues its turning, days follow nights, seasons cycle through their ancient patterns. But the one who has awakened to consciousness knows that none of this touches the essential nature of being. Like a dreamer who becomes lucid within a dream, they move through the world aware of its dreamlike quality, participating fully in its activities while no longer being fooled by its apparent solidity. The unspeakable mystery. Language strains and finally breaks when attempting to convey the deepest truths of this recognition. For we speak of consciousness, of being, of existence, as though these were things that could be pointed to, objects that could be examined. Yet consciousness is not an object among objects. It is the witnessing presence that makes all objects knowable, the clear light in which all phenomena appear and disappear. To try to make it an object of knowledge is to fundamentally misunderstand its nature. The mystic learns to dwell in this paradox, to speak about what cannot be spoken, to point toward what cannot be captured in concepts. They use metaphors knowing that all metaphors fail, employ language knowing that silence speaks more truly. Yet even silence can become another concept, another thing to grasp. The genuine silence lies deeper than any attempted silence, in the wordless recognition that precedes all words, the knowing that exists before all knowledge. This is why the mystical traditions speak of the ineffable, the unknowable, the mystery that deepens rather than resolves with contemplation. Not because there is some special secret being withheld, some esoteric knowledge reserved for initiates, but because the ultimate reality is so simple, so immediate, so utterly obvious that it escapes all attempts to make it complicated or special. Consciousness is. Being is. In this present moment, existence unfolds. What could be more obvious? Yet what could be more mysterious? The invitation to stillness. The path opens before each seeker, though calling it a path introduces the illusion of distance between here and there, between now and then. Better to say that the truth reveals itself in the moment of looking, that consciousness recognizes itself when attention turns inward, when the endless outward flow of thought and perception pauses and reverses its current. This turning requires no special preparation, no years of study, no particular practice or technique, though all of these may serve as useful scaffolding for those who need support. What it requires is a quality of attention that is simultaneously relaxed and alert, a willingness to let go of the known, a courage to rest in not knowing. In this rest, something profound may stir. Not a new experience, not a dramatic revelation, but a quiet recognition that has been present all along, waiting with infinite patience to be noticed. The recognition that all is consciousness, that being is prior to all becoming, that existence is fundamentally complete and whole. This does not solve the problems of life or exempt one from the challenges of embodied existence. The mystic still faces joy and sorrow, health and illness, gain and loss. But there is a shift in identification, a loosening of the tight grip of personal history and future hope. Life continues, but it is known to be occurring within a vaster context, like waves upon an infinite ocean. The return to the beginning. In the end, or perhaps more accurately, in the eternal present that has no end, the seeker discovers what was never lost. The elaborate journey through philosophies and practices, through questions and answers, through the dark night of seeking and the dawn of finding, circles back to the simple fact of consciousness with which everything began. But now this fact is not merely known intellectually, it is lived, breathed, embodied in every moment. The infinite depth of being reveals itself not as something far away or long ago, not as a distant goal or future attainment, but as the ever-present ground of this moment. Here, now, always, consciousness is. Being is. And in this recognition, the heart finds its rest, the mind finds its peace, the soul discovers its home in the vastness that it has always been and will always be. This is the mystical truth that cannot be taught but only pointed toward, cannot be given but only recognized, cannot be achieved but only realized as having always already been the case. May all seekers find their way to this recognition, or more precisely, May this recognition find them, as inevitably it must. For consciousness knows itself through every apparent seeker, awakens to itself through every apparent journey. In the silence beyond all words, in the stillness beneath all movement, in the presence before all experience, being simply is, infinite, eternal, and utterly complete. And we are that.